Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. And on tonight's edition, we're going to be previewing all the upcoming games in the National League. As you can tell, I'm joined not by Paul tonight, I'm joined by Chris, who is, of course, a Southend United fan. And as you can tell by the massive grin on his face, he's, I think, quite upbeat, aren't you, at the moment after Saturday's result?
Yeah, I'm going to start a petition to finish the National League season now. So if we could just stop with Southend, top of the league, and have the rest of the time off, I think that would be fantastic. As Southend fans, we're always kind of like ready to expect the unexpected, as it were. But I think even by Southend's own unique standards, Saturday was one that did surprise a lot of us.
Yeah. Well, I'd happily take that. A third place finish for Halifax Town would do me fine, to be honest. I'm sure the Oldham fans and maybe the York fans who are watching won't be as happy and pleased about that. I don't think they'll be signing any petitions. But no, we're going to be previewing all the upcoming games in the National League tonight with myself, Chris. I'm throwing you in at the deep end here. Of course, Paul has been unable to join us tonight, so I've got an equally good replacement. I was hoping to bring you on to talk a bit about Southend anyway, so it's going to be interesting. But what was, before we get into the fixtures, what was your take on Saturday? Because you go into that game, I would suspect, I'm sure you'll have a lot more to say on this, it feels a bit, not awkward, but it feels a bit uncomfortable when you're going into Roots Hall with all the news surrounding it at the moment. And, you know, you're getting fans that are boycotting games. What was like the general day like, although you won 4-0?
I think I can understand people that are boycotting, and I won't say what's right or wrong, because I think whatever you decide is fine for your own individual needs. Obviously, I work as the reporter, so I had to go, and from my point of view, it was just a relief to be watching football and focusing on football, because for so long that hasn't been the case now with Southend. All summer has been court case after court case and people not being paid and transferring embargoes, and it had just been doom and gloom for so long, and there was seemingly no light at the end of the tunnel. There was nothing really to be sort of focusing on that was a positive. For much of the summer, we didn't even know whether we were going to be able to start the National League season. We didn't even know if we were going to be able to host the first game of the season. And we only got the thumbs up for that on the Monday before the Oldham match, that we finally knew it was going to be able to take place at Roots Hall. So to come into that, 15 players available, we've had no summer signings because of the embargo, and then to come in and take on Oldham, who have assembled a really good-looking squad on paper, and you would still expect them to be up there this season. So for Southend to win that in the manner they did was just exceptional, really. It's one of the most memorable matches I've ever seen Southend play. Even when we were winning 1-0 at half-time, you kind of thought, well, we've not really had much of a pre-season. We played 2 pre-season friendlies in public, and Oldham are going to be a lot more prepared. So in the second half, they're going to be piling on the pressure, and we're going to be having to dig deep here to try and hold on to what we had. And shows how much I know, because that didn't happen at all, and they just got better. Albeit Oldham did go down to 10 men, which I'm sure had a big say on things. But the way that Southend played was just brilliant, really, and it was quite emotional, really, at the end. I'm not normally an emotional person unless ET's on, and I was sort of like really definitely quite emotional. And I know I'm not the only one that felt that, but I think we've just had so much rubbish for so long, and it's all been pent up inside for all summer, not knowing what's going to happen next, that for 90 minutes we could just focus on Southend doing something right, and it was brilliant. And look, who knows what happens with Southend from here. You can never predict what's going to happen, but for that one day it was just brilliant, and it'll be an afternoon that we'll always remember.
Did it feel like a bit of a fluke or freak result, or was it a real, like, you just outclassed them in all areas, do you think?
Southend deserved to win. They certainly started really brightly. Were on top early on and got the goal from a corner. Oldham had a little bit of a go before half-time, and just after half-time they sort of popped it around quite nicely and played some good football. But Colin didn't really have too much to do in goal, in all fairness. He wasn't really called into action that often. And even look at it as a neutral, you'd have to say that the Southend definitely did deserve the victory. 4-0 maybe might be a bit too big, but I don't think so. I think that Southend were the stronger side, and I think maybe Oldham took it for granted. They'd seen the problems that Southend had, and just kind of thought that they were going for an easy afternoon, and maybe they sort of underestimated the quality that Southend had, because there aren't many players there, but the players that are there are still good players. But the problem is there's only 15 available at the moment, so longer term that might be an issue. But on the balance of play and statistics and stuff like that, I think you'd have to say that it was a performance that warranted the manner of the victory, and some of the goals that Southend got were really good as well.
Yeah, there certainly was. And I've seen the highlights of that game, and I know that Dan Mooney strike was exceptional towards the end of the match for Southend United. But do you think throughout, and I know it's hard to say at the moment, and I know we've been saying this, and even when I was drawing up with predictions, I was trying to get what your thoughts were on it. And, it's so hard to call at the moment because you just don't know what's around the corner at Southend. But let's say there's no point deductions that are going to happen. You can play throughout this season. What would a realistic position do you think be for Southend United? Because if you play like that every Saturday against Oldham, you are going to win the division. But we know when injuries start to come in and, fatigue, that's when you're going to start to struggle. And that's why I probably feel that you may struggle long term this season.
Yeah, so an important date that is coming up for Southend is they're back in the High Court on August the 23rd, and there's a tax bill that needs to be paid. They've been told they need to pay it by the National League as well this time, so that's a significant date in Southend's season. If that gets paid, then that kind of puts aside the worry of the point deduction for a while, at least, until there's other payments due, which there will be at Southend, of course. And if they do pay that, I know I'm right in saying that would lift the embargo. So that's why it becomes an important period for Southend, because if they can get that done and they can start to bolster their squad with sort of the signings that they need, because you look at it at the moment, there's only 2 strikers, there's only 1 goalkeeper. So there's obvious areas of weakness. There's not too many centre backs. So it's obvious that they need to get signings in. So there's kind of like a plan A and a plan B that you'd be able to tell which direction Southend's season's going to go in after August the 23rd. Now, plan A would be that everything gets paid and that everything's going to be, I won't say rosy, but rosier than it has been. And then Southend, because they've not been able to sign a single player since September. It's nearly a year since Southend were able to sign a player, which is remarkable, really, to do as well as they did last year, and then to sort of start this year so strongly as well on the opening day. So if it doesn't get paid, obviously there is the risk of the 10 points and having to carry on with a limited number of players. And I think as well, the spirits would start to go down after that. So that's a significant date. And I think you'd be able to assess more accurately where Southend are going to be after that. I'd like to think that it all gets done and it will all get sorted, and Southend could be in the top half, sort of pushing forward again. But there are worries that remain. Even the opening day is fantastic, but you've got adrenaline and excitement, and longer term, perhaps the lack of a pre-season is going to sort of hinder them at some point up against other sides that had a really good pre-season. You just don't know. It's uncharted territory, really, that a team would only have 2 pre-season friendlies out in the open and not really had the training as other sides have had. So, it's a little bit uncertain as to what's going to happen, but I think we'll know more after August the 23rd with just how well Southend are going to do this season.
Yep, I know a lot of people are commenting a lot on Southend United and just their teams and basically introducing themselves to the stream. But before we look at your comments, I just want to ask, I want to look from a different perspective. As someone who attended the game, would you be very, very concerned about Oldham after that? Because they're a bit of a flip side to Southend, and they've got a load of money. They've spent a lot of money. They're probably the second favourites, if not the favourites, to win the league this season. And then to lose to Thorn, and this is no disrespect, but a side that is in turmoil at the moment. How concerning would it be if you were an Oldham fan at the moment, based off that performance? Or do you really do feel that you can't really read too much into it because it was the opening day?
I think just the Southend won't be getting too carried away over the win. I think if you're an Oldham fan, I don't think you can get too carried away by the defeat. I was surprised because, like you, we all do our sort of predictions and we think who's going to be up there. And I had Oldham finishing in second place, and I thought they were going to be really strong. And I still think they will. Perhaps they underestimated Southend. They'd seen a club in turmoil, like you said. They'd seen all the problems going on, and their confidence was high. But I think perhaps it will be a real sort of kick up the bum for them, really, that although they've got these really good players and they've got the options and they've spent all this money, the National League is a really, really hard league. I don't need to tell you that or anyone else that will be tuning in to listen, because we're all fans of the National League and we know just how difficult every single game is. So they will have learnt that the hard way, one or two of them, their players at Southend on Saturday. But I do still think they will be up there. If you look at even some of the players Dickinson came on off the bench against Southend. He's a good player from what I've seen in the past. And you look at the options that they've got at their disposal, and you have to think that they'll get it right. And it'll be interesting. The reaction on Saturday will be interesting, because it will see whether or not that really has acted as an ulterior sort of motive in terms of motivating them, getting them up for the game, or whether or not there's something a little bit more longer term to be worried about. But I mean, they finished last year quite well, didn't they? So I think that they'll be okay. I know there was quite a lot of disparaging comments about their manager on social media after the game. He wasn't even there, to be fair. He had COVID, but you're always going to get that after a defeat. So I think it's too early to make too many judgments. I was a bit disappointed in James Norwood, I have to say. I thought he was going to be brilliant. I thought he was going to, when they announced the signing just before playing Southend, I think we thought, oh no, this is all we need. It's going to be difficult as enough as it is. And he wasn't really in the game at all. He had one header that was straight at the keeper, but other than that, he wasn't really involved. So he'll certainly be one that will be trying to improve on Saturday, and I'm sure all Oldham players will. And I don't think it was a bad day for them, and they'll be frustrated and disappointed, but it's too early to say that it's anything major to read into. And if I'm being honest, I think they'll probably still be there or thereabouts, as you say, at the end of the season. But yeah, it'll be interesting. That's the most, other than Southend, that's the most interesting game I'll be looking at the weekend to see how they do react.
Yeah, there's some very, very intriguing games, I think, coming up this game week. And I'm not just saying that, but obviously we've been talking about Southend, Oldham. We're going to come back to those clubs when we predict their games later on in the stream, but we'll have a look at what people have been saying. Maidstone fan, this is another Southend upset incoming, potentially against Dagenham. I know that's a derby, and I'm sure been saying off air, haven't we, Chris, that we've been looking forward to that. Mr. Luke, who's a Gateshead fan, said, hello, gents, you know the drill. No pressure at all on predicting these games. All the best to Southend during the horrible off-the-field issues. Cheers for that, Luke. Yeah, it's very difficult to predict these fixtures, Chris. I'm going to put up mine and Paul's results straight after this. But I think for this week, because Paul is unable to attend, what we've said is, come the end of the season, whoever's got the lowest points has to wear. Well, I have to wear a Rochdale shirt if I.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
If I obviously come second to Paul, but then if Paul loses and I win, he has to wear a Barnet shirt, being a Wheelstone fan. So,
okay, I like that. Yeah, good thinking.
So you'll be hoping that. Well, you can do Paul a favour tonight, won't you, with your predictions? We've got Tom.
No pressure then.
Yeah, no pressure. We've got Tom who's coming. AFC Foul signed Josh Kay yesterday. Top sign. Yeah, I've seen that. I know a few League One sides were in for him. So, yeah, File do mean business, I do feel. We've got an older shot fan who said, shots fan evening, gents. Great to see Southend overcoming adversity. Difficult task for you at the Daggers this weekend. Joe, who's a Chesterfield fan, said, football isn't played on paper, it's played on grass. George is a York fan. Evening all. Simon's also mentioned Josh Kay, nothing to be excited about. John, I believe, might be a Wrexham fan, I have a feeling. Did Dorking get robbed, equalise down a man and losing 10th at a minute? Maybe Refs League's not a fan of Mark. Yeah, I know. I'm going to get your tip before we do look at the rest of the comments. Of course, what we've seen is ridiculous added time that's been added. And it's not just a question like in the National League, it's happening in League 2, League 1. As high up as the Premiership, it's across the whole of the English system with the new rules being implemented. What's your take on it? Because, of course, it basically means every time the ball goes out of play, the ref presses his watch and then just adds time on. What's your take on that?
Well, it's a bit of a worry for a midweek game because for the paper, the deadline's 10 o'clock. They have to get everything done. So I was sitting there the other day thinking, we had 6 minutes in the first half at Roots Hall. And I think we had 10 minutes at the end of the second, and it's just crazy, isn't it, really? So in Southend's perspective, it's not great with the small squad and the limited options that they do have at the moment. And it just seems a bit bizarre, really, doesn't it, that we've gone from sort of one extreme to the other. Is it right? Is it wrong? I guess it's personal preference. But I do remember a few games sort of this season, or sorry, last season. I think it's Boreham Wood game that was quite infamous for Southend fans on the start of the season. I think it was something like the ball was in play for 36 minutes of the match, I think that the statistics showed. So I guess people have looked onto that and think that something does need to be done. So it'll be interesting in like a month or so, or maybe a little bit longer, to see if this becomes the norm or whether or not it's just something that's kind of flavour of the month at the moment, and then a bit further down the line it gets forgotten about, a bit like the goalie 6-second rule and kind of that people come in and have these ideas and then they get sort of carried away by it. But from my point of view, it's more football. So I guess if your team's winning going into additional time, you don't like it. If it's 1-0 up, you want it to over. But if you're losing, then you think that it gives you more time to get back into the game. I love football, so if we get more football, then I'm all for it. But I suppose there'll be worries about players playing longer and things like that. But I did see a story today, albeit it was higher up the leagues, that it was only an extra 3 minutes longer, they said, than last season, which surprised me, because I don't remember being too many matches at Southend that had 16 minutes of additional time. So, yeah, it is a bit bizarre, really. We saw it in the World Cup, didn't we? I think that's probably where people got the idea from and started to try and bring it into our game domestically and looking at what was happening. So I guess maybe it's a good thing if it stops people. I guess the aim is to stop people time wasting and the awful goalkeeper going down injured in every single pretty game I saw last season, really. So I guess they've tried to do something, and time will tell, no pun intended, whether or not that is the right thing to do. But it's a tough one to know about at the moment, but it gives us more to watch and more to talk about. So why not give it a go?
I'm just not really a fan of it, just on my preferences of it. I just think that we look, and this is across the pyramid now, I think time, and I know it's about sportsmanship, football, but I think time wasting within reason is part of the game. It's something that we've had historically, and it's just my personal opinion on it. And I do feel that, this dark arts of the game, it's part of football, and you've got to learn to deal with it. I think it's going to suit the sides, the bigger sides who might be losing, who, looking like it did with Chesterfield against Dorking. Usually Dorking would have got a point there, where Chesterfield, because they had that much time, they managed to go on and win the game. It's just about opinions. I want to hear what you guys also, who are in the live chat, feel about that as well. If you're in favour, if you're not. We've had a few working fans that are joining us. Up the working, Harvey says. And then we've had Adale. Hello all. Working, let's go. And then we've got Dorking were time wasting all game. They deserved to lose. This goes back to the point. And then we've had, no, Dorking didn't get robbed. Every time had the extended added time, and there were 5 subs, 4 goals, 2 or 3 injuries, and a red card in the second half. And then we've had George, who's come in and said, if it loads, hoping Southend pull through. We've had, I was there and shocked with Dawkins' players dropping and rolling around to waste time. And then we've got, you can't buy success overnight. City took 2 or 3 years before they were competitive. Wrexham took 2 years, as did Stockport. And then we've had, come on the Fleet, big win last weekend. It certainly was. And they are going to be a dark horse in my eyes. I was very impressed with them. And I do think Rochdale is still going to be a tough place to go. And I do think that they're good, especially at home this season. I think it's a big season for them. What's your take on Ebbsfleet?
Yeah, I mean, they had the momentum behind them, didn't they? The sides that are sort of coming up, they did very well to win promotion last season. They kept an eye on them, really. They got 1 or 2 former Southend players in their squad, and then they're not a million miles away from us in Kent. So we played them pre-season the year before last as well. So it's a nice little setup, and they've also got one of the nicest men in football, in Mark Cousins, in goal. So I always like to see him doing well, even though he did used to play for Colchester. We can let him off with that one. So I was pleased to see him start the season with a clean sheet. I think it was Luke O'Neill who scored as well. He was a former Southend player, and that was a really good start for them, because that's quite a tough place to go. You would think, but you would think that Rochdale would do well this year, and I still think they'll be mid-table-ish. But you look at one side that's got the momentum coming up, and the other side that's got the momentum coming down. And we've been there with Southend. And when you come down, it's obvious, but you're coming down from a reason, and you've got to overcome that difficulties that you've had normally on and off the pitch and start again. And it's not always that easy because it's an unforgiving level, this, and it's difficult to sort of find your feet. So perhaps it was quite a good time to sort of play Rochdale before they fully adjust. But yeah, to go there and get a win on the opening day, that will really sort of lift their confidence, because they could have been entering the unknown a little bit at this level and perhaps worrying about what it was going to be like. But I think they've got that momentum behind them from last year. They've got some exciting players, and I'm with you. I think they finish in the top 10 this year.
I've got them 12th, but I wouldn't be surprised if they finished in the top 10, like you've mentioned. But yeah, the fact that Polian wasn't even playing up top for them just shows that they're not reliant on that prolific goal score.
He was at Southend in his as a youngster, actually. So he got sent off, didn't he, towards the end of last season?
Yeah, so he couldn't play, but he's a very good player, and he wasn't even playing. And to go to Rochdale, I don't care what people say about them being on a downward spiral, which I do agree with, but I do think with some of those individuals, some experienced players at Rochdale, I think that's a very good result from Ebbsfleet. David's come and said, David, representing Maidenhead United, evening all, welcome to the stream. We'll be speaking about Maidenhead very shortly. And then we've had another York fan that's come in. And then we've had bit late, lads, a Halifax fan. I love it when the Halifax fans join us once again. Bit late, lads, but how's it going? Very good, thank you. And I think Chris is very happy as well after Southend United. And then we've got hello, I'm Brazilian, who supports Southend.
Yes, come on.
So you've got a bit of a.
Do we get a free holiday to Brazil? If I bring you a Southend shirt, we can come over to Rio de Janeiro or wherever you are. But nice to see.
Where would you go? Where would you go, Chris? What part of Brazil?
My Brazilian knowledge isn't really the best, but I think you have to say Rio de Janeiro. Obviously, the Olympics were there, weren't they? And the World Cup and everything like that. With it'd be one beach for another, because we've got the beach in Southend, so I'm used to the beaches. Yeah. So probably slightly different.
Yeah, you need to get him to come over to Southend.
Yeah, come over. Yeah, come over to the Southend game. I don't know if you've been or not before, or how you ended up supporting Southend in Brazil, but yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, try and come over for a match, and we'll sort you out some tickets and meeting the players and stuff like that. So yeah, do come over, and I'll just jump in the suitcase for the way back.
yeah. Maybe you will have to. We'll have a look at what the rest of people are saying. My computer's been very slow, so I do apologise for this, but I'm hoping it's gonna show up in a second. It might have actually showed up on other people's screens and not just not mine.
I can read it if you want me to.
There we go. I think it's there. 20 minutes added at Maidenhead. Should have been about half of that. No one was kicking the ball away, standing in front of free kicks or fraying head injuries. Yeah. And then we've had...
when it's our team, we're always going to be a bit biased about it, aren't we? So you almost need a neutral at a game to... Because if I'm a Southend fan and we're losing and the referee only adds on 5, I'm going to think it's more. Whereas the other team that's winning thinks there should be less. So I think we're all going to be a bit biased because we all support one team or the other. So we probably need someone that's a neutral at a game to sort of be a little bit more honest, if that's the right word, about it. Because when we're so involved and engrossed in the game and so want our team to win, we can kind of see it through different eyes, can't we? But yeah, it's certainly something worth talking about and something that will be interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah, we've got a Rochdale fan who's come in and said, up the massive Dale. You'll be hoping for a better result. You'll get a bit of a culture shock going to Oxford City. Let's put it this way. I know it was COVID, Chris, but I don't know if you attended the games in COVID or not.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But what was, when you first got relegated to non-league, what was the first round where you thought, right, we really have entered non-league?
Right, okay. But I didn't want to be like a big-time Charlie, so I was like, like this is what it is. And we had King's Lynn away on the first game of the season, and I remember like we got there and we sort of parked in a field, and then we got to the press box, and there was more press than there were seats, and I just remember did think for a little bit like, oh my god. But yeah, I relish it all now. I kind of quite like it. I think it's a really nice. I mean, I don't want Southend to be in it for too long. We all want to get out of it, don't we? But I have to say, it's real football, and it's real football fans. I think the higher up you go, I don't think you get that. And obviously, Southend's situation's been horrific, and the only. It's not a good thing, but the support from other clubs has been amazing, like York in particular, and a lot of other clubs that have sent their wishes of good support. I think it's been fantastic. I think higher up the leagues, I don't think you get that kind of camaraderie between football fans. And I know we all have a bit of a sort of wind up with each other about certain things, especially on social media. But I think underneath it all, everyone cares about each other at this level, and no one wants to see a club dying, whoever they are. And I think we all realise that could happen to us. Like, that could easily be our club. Okay, it's Southend at the moment, but further down the line, it might be someone else if they're not run properly or the game's not governed properly. So I think that's been, I don't want to say a good thing because it's not, but the support that Southend have received has kind of been quite uplifting and really good to see that people are actually worried about football, that's not just about their club. And I think that's the good thing about National League football and below, is that it's real people that genuinely care about their football clubs. They don't just sort of stand up and clap at the telly. This is sort of like people that really care about their club. So that's why I quite like it, and I'll always watch this league now, whether or not Southend are in it or not.
I'd agree, but I think Halifax is going to be. I still feel Halifax will be in here longer than what Southend United will be in it.
Yeah.
Even in current circumstances. But no, I think we get a trend, don't we, in this division? Is you get a lot of big clubs that come into this division, especially in the last 10 or 15 years. You get a lot of big clubs that come in this division that are massive clubs, like your Southends, your Oldhams. This season, you've got Rochdale and Hartlepool, who are two big clubs. You very rarely get quite small, traditional non-league clubs that come down into this division. So, but when sides do come down, who are these big clubs, there's clearly a reason. And it's either due to mismanagement or most of the time due to poor ownership. So everyone, I think, has got an understanding, like Oldham have an understanding probably about your situation, Southend. Rochdale, of course, will as well. I believe they're going through a few minor issues as well at the moment themselves. Halifax, we do, because we went through it a long time ago now, but we've been through it as well. So, I think everyone's just got an understanding of other teams in this division, and we know that we are all die-hard supporters. Everyone who's watching this, I'm sure, if they can, goes in week in, week out, and if they don't, it's probably due to living away. But we all love our clubs just as much as each other. But we're going to whiz through all of the last few messages, and then we'll get on to the predictions. Because I know you've got a bit of you're playing tennis at 9 o'clock, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I can put it back. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So but it'd be like mind games. I'll leave them on the court waiting. So that'll be all right.
We've got Hayden who's coming, always here for the shame and propaganda, Luke. And then we've had another Halifax fan who's coming, up the shame and indeed. Let us know, lads, if you're going down to Bournemouth this weekend. Chesterfield fan, hopefully we can settle down now after that 4-3 against Dorking. See if there's anyone else who's new into the stream. I think Oxford City will have too much for us this week, and that's a big call being a Rochdale fan. But I respect the fact that you're not going into this game thinking it's going to be easy. And then we've had Jake who said, what do you think is the biggest derby this season? What would you do, Chris? Because I would do probably Aldershot Woking for me. That's the biggest.
Yeah. What about Gateshead Hartlepool this weekend, isn't it?
I wouldn't say that's the biggest, though. It's not a traditional derby, is it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think you're right. Southend v Dagenham is always an interesting one in terms of whether or not it's actually a derby or not. I think it's probably the closest thing that both teams have to a derby in this league, but I don't think it'll be the biggest one, because I don't think it's been long term enough, and really I don't think deep down people see it as a derby. So I wouldn't put that one. So judging by what I've seen on social media and everything like that, I think you could be right, in fairness. They don't seem to like each other very much, do they?
No, they don't. It seems like an excuse just to be just mental at a home game and get
Yeah,
loads of
good
fire
question,
and balloons in. But yeah, that is a good. I think Halifax Rochdale might be one, but I start
Is Rochdale Oldham one as well?
That's one as well, yeah. But I think what we've got is Halifax feel Rochdale. We think they're our main rivals. Rochdale will probably think Oldham are their main rivals, so it's sort of a bit like a food chain there.
Is it Barnet and Wealdstone?
Wealdstone, as well. But no, I think Aldershot Woking, to be honest, because
I'll go with that.
It's not like, I think the fact with like maybe Southend, Dagenham and Oldham, Rochdale is, it's not that they're traditional derbies. I do think Oldham, Rochdale is, but they're not the main rivals to them. It's the fact that they've just both found themselves in the same division. Where Aldershot Woking, they historically.
You should do a vote.
Yeah, we will do. When we get the predictions up, we'll ask people for the biggest derby. Everyone's saying. Someone said Rochdale versus Oldham, and then we've got Shotts v Woking. Shots working by far. Everyone seems to think. And let's not forget Solihull Moors versus Kidderminster. Of course, that'll be a new derby now.
Yeah, it's a new one as well, yeah.
But we'll get into the predictions then. So these were the results last week. And if neither of us do any better than this, then I should pack in, to be honest, if I can't do better than that. 3 points I got. And Paul got worse. And
so at least you won, though, so it doesn't matter, You ground it out when not at your best. That's a sign of a good predictor, right?
No, I don't really see it as a win, though, because I did so poor. Because basically how we do it is if you get the exact result correct, so if you say 3-2 and it ends up being 3-2, you get 3 points.
Okay,
if you say get the result, so you said 1-0 but the side won 2-0, you get 1 point. And then if you get it totally wrong, then you get no points at all.
We used to do this in the car on a long away journey. So that's and I was terrible then as well. So.
It should be interesting. To be honest, someone who obviously you take an interest in the league very well and you're very knowledgeable on the division, but someone who there's less pressure on them, I think could probably do better.
You're playing mind games now, aren't you? You're just trying to
I am playing mind games. They're the results.
Full sense of security.
Yeah, I think the one that I think me and Paul agreed on 2 of the correct results, and then the other one we disagreed on was Halifax Bromley, and that's why I won by 1 point.
You mean no one had Southend to win 4-0? Did you not?
No, not one person did.
That was obvious.
You didn't. You certainly didn't. You were proper negative on there. But no, we've on the group chat. But we'll get this up anyway. This is what I always mess this up where it's just me on the screen. So I'll have to quickly sort that out.
Oh no, that's all right. People probably don't want to see me anyway, so it's probably better.
I had the better one. I had the correct one there. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Right, we'll get on with it then. So the table, you'll be very happy to see this, Chris. The last time
just pause it there. Me and the boy from Brazil, we'll be loving it.
Yeah. I'll take that like I've mentioned.
Yeah, just crop it after the third team, Luke. Then we'll be all right.
Oldham, bottom of the league. That is awful. I know it's the opening game week, but that's grim, I think, for any Oldham fans. And then we'll go on to the upcoming fixtures then. So what I usually do is I always ask the guests to give us a game that they'd like to predict first. So where would you like to start?
Well, let's go Southend, shall we? And I might as well get that one out of the way first, seeing as that's my team.
Was I correct in saying this were meant to be televised?
Yeah, that's right. So it was initially chosen as the TV game, and then with all the uncertainty that there was around Southend starting the season and things going on and off the pitch, it was decided that it would be taken off the telly. So it's not one that's on television. So we get to go there a bit earlier now. So we get to go home and get back a little bit than earlier, a bit more telly. So it'll be an interesting one. It's always quite fiery there. It's actually a repeat of Kevin Mayer's first game as Southend manager way back when. Last year it was a draw, and I think it's going to be a draw again this time, to be honest. What do you think?
I'm going to agree with you on
that. No pressure. You can carry on.
I'm going to ask for you. I need your exact result.
Right, I will go. It 1-1, same as last year.
I think, what did I go for now? I'll get it in my notes here. But it's just very hard to call. Of course, Dagenham got a point away at Oldham.
Yeah, they drew 1-0 first game, didn't they? Late goal.
Yeah, I thought was a good point. And then Southend, well, I just don't know really what to think of them. I think, what did I go for now? I went for... I can find it here, 2-2 between the two sides.
Yeah, Desmond.
So
Yeah, no, that's
a
good.
2-2 draw. But yeah, I think, both sides will be up for this. Dagenham, I don't really know what to expect from them. I put them quite low. But I do think that they're a side that's going to go either way. They've made some quite impressive signings recently. And Southend, after that opening day, it's too hard to predict.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Sold out away end with over 1,000 fans travelling as well. So it'll be a good atmosphere.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Where would you like to go next then?
Where should we go next? Go on, Bournemouth Halifax, as it's me and you. Go on.
Okay, Bournemouth Halifax. I'll get my prediction out of the way. 0-0 draw. Of course, Bournemouth got a point at Gateshead on the opening day, and we managed to beat Bromley at home, which was a very good win because Bromley are no pushovers, and to have a side like that on the opening day is a very tough game, and to come to win, I thought, quite comfortably in the end. I take a lot of positives. The only concerns I still have is going forward. I just can't see where the goals are going to come from. Even in that Bromley game, we didn't create that many chances. We were just quite clinical. I think we had 4 or 5 chances throughout the 90 minutes, and we only managed to score 2 of them. And throughout the 90 minutes, all the chances came in that second half. So I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw. Bournemouth so good defensively. They always are, and they've just added to it. So I think a good point for Halifax, that'd be, I don't know what Bournemouth, I don't think Bournemouth would take that. They'd want to win being at home. But yeah, 0-0 draw for me. What do you think on this game?
I feel bad saying what I think might happen now because
it's you. Just do it.
I think Bournemouth is one of the hardest places to go to in the league and one of the hardest teams to play against. They're good at what they do. It seems to be the standard answer that everyone says about them, and they're very good at home. I think they'll win 1-0. Sorry,
1-0. It'll be low.
I'm so bad at predictions that's probably a good one for you.
Yeah. No. Well, I'm gonna stick with my 0-0. So where do you want to go next then?
You choose. Go on. I've done the first 2, so you can choose next.
Trying to see if there's any naff games. It's that early on in the season. You don't really get them. Let's go to Eastleigh versus Wealdstone. As Paul is not here, we can talk about Wealdstone how we like. And I'm going to put it out there. Eastleigh 2-0 versus Wealdstone. Of course, Wealdstone won on the opening day, but I'm quite optimistic about Eastleigh this season with the players that they've brought in. That Enzo Baldwin were very good against Solihull. He looked it in the probably should have scored, and he did get a goal, but probably should have scored another as well. So I think Eastleigh will win this being at home. They had a very good home form last season, and I think they'll bring that into this season. So a 2-0 Eastleigh win. What do you see on this game?
Right. Well, I was going to say 2-0 as well, but it's boring if we both say the same score because then we just get the same points. So I will say 2-1.
2-1.
They were very strong at home last year. Always found a way to win, even if it was scoring from the halfway line against Southend early on in the season. Yeah. Fantastic goal. I remember that. And they should have made the playoffs, really, shouldn't they? They fell away badly at the end of the season, seemed to run out of momentum. But yeah, they're another team that are really hard to sort of play against. And especially at their place, I think they're very hard to beat. And I don't see too many teams going there and getting results this season. So yeah, sorry, Paul.
yeah, I think we'll both have to apologise about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think Eastleigh, they're a side that I don't know where you're expecting them to finish this season, but I've got them 4th. I think they'll be very strong this season. What's your take on them as a whole?
On Eastleigh, did you say? Sorry, yeah?
Yeah.
I think they'll be in and around the playoffs. I think they'll be pushing for that final playoff place. I think they might have learned from what went wrong last season, where they kind of seemed to sort of run out of steam, haven't they? They've got a good manager there. He's a good guy. And I think they'll be in and around it again this season, definitely. I think they'll probably go one better than last year, and I think they'll get that final playoff place.
Right, where do you want to go next then?
Let's go Oldham. I'm quite intrigued by this game this week. How do you see that one going?
Well, this is probably, I think, the one that I've been most looking forward to preview. But I think it's a harder game than what you'd expect it to be to call. I know Paul. I've got Paul's predictions. So and he backed Oldham to win this. And honestly, Aldershot, is it their time to shine this season? Because a 5-2 win on the opening day, that means business, I think, no matter who the opponent was. We don't know what to really expect from Oxford City this season because they are an unknown quantity. But I think you can only beat what's in front of you. And to score 5 goals at home, to me, shows that they've come a long way from last season. And the likes of that, I think it's Tolaha or Tolja, something like that going forward. He looks a player for Aldershot this season. And I think although that they've lost Tyler Cordner, I'm quite positive for them this season. And I do think that my prediction of putting them, I think 18th is a bit low now. And I do think they're going to be that surprise package. And I think going to somewhere like Oldham, who on a bit of a downer after that opening day, of course, a lot of pressure on Oldham. I'm actually going to go for a draw in this game. I think a 1-1 draw. Like I've said, I'm looking forward to seeing Aldershot this season and seeing what they're capable of, because I really do feel with that side they've got a very good balance, and I think that they're going to be that dark horse this season. Maybe that when we're doing my predictions, I should have had more faith in Widdrington, because like I've said, I think Aldershot will be that dark horse this season alongside some other sides. But yeah, what's your take on this game?
Yeah, I can see your thought process there, and it could potentially go that way. I just think, having seen Oldham, I think they're going to be the stereotypical wounded animal from the manager catchphrase book that will be used, and I think they would have been hurting a lot this weekend. They didn't get the best of receptions from their fans at the final whistle at Roots Hall, and deservedly so. I think it would have been a long week for them, and they'll be chomping at the bit to sort of get out there again, and they'll be really keen to show that they mean business this season. So I think it could be the worst time to be playing Oldham. I think they could sort of going to click into play sooner or later. So yeah, I expect them to win 2-0.
I think it's going to take them a few games,
You could do, yeah. I'm only saying that literally because I think they're going to be so fired up after losing at Southend. But you are right. This is the game that I looked at, especially after Aldershot's opening day win, and thought, oh yeah, this is a good one. The pressure's going to be off Aldershot as well, especially after that result. People are still going to be looking at Oldham as one of the big hitters in the league, and I think the start of the game will be very important. If Oldham sort of get the momentum early on and get an early goal, then it's all systems go. But if they don't, then the crowd could start to get a little bit frustrated. I'd imagine there'd be a large crowd in there again because of how well they are supported. So the opening to that game will be very interested. But yeah, I just see Oldham just coming out on top on that one.
I just feel like I was saying while I was saying that I think they're going to have a bit of a difficult start. I know I was saying to my dad, I'm glad that Halifax are playing Oldham early on in the season, because we saw with Stockport a couple of seasons ago when they won promotion. They had a horrendous start to the National League.
Yeah.
And they actually went on to sack the manager, which we'll come on to very shortly, and your opinions on him. But I looked at Wrexham and Notts last season. They were they never were really awful. I wouldn't say that, because they were two of the best sides I've ever seen in this division. But what I will say about those two sides is they weren't dominant in the first couple of games. Notts County won the first game, then drew the next 3. And Wrexham, I think, drew to Yeovil and then lost to Chesterfield.
Yeah.
And I think
drew at Southend early on last year.
And Southend
quite lucky with that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that Oldham are going to be a side that will struggle and come good at some point, if that is with the same manager, because they've got some brilliant individuals, but it's going to take time for them to gel together. And I think Aldershot, it feels like they've already gelled together well. They've got a very good manager, and I think they'll take Oldham by surprise. I'm still expecting Oldham to pick up a result, because I think they need to, otherwise that crowd behind them, I hate to imagine what that's going to be like at full time if Oldham lose, or even if they do fail to win, to be honest. But I just want to have a look at that poll, because I did a poll at the start of the video asking people, is Unsworth the right man for Oldham? 38% have said that Unsworth is the right man for Oldham out of, I think, 40 votes that we've got so far. So keep voting. I know there's a few more in the stream who probably haven't voted. And then 62% have said that Unsworth out. What do you see from that? Because I see it as if a fan base has already lost all the faith in the manager, then it's time to go, because I can't see Unsworth turning it around. What's your take on that?
I think football is very fickle, isn't it? I think it's having lost 4-0 to Southend. If they win 4-0 at the weekend and you did another vote straight after that, you'd probably get a different result. I think the pressure on him is very high. They're expected to do well. They've got money there, haven't they, with the owner that's come in and backed it. I met him at the weekend, actually. A really charismatic character, a really nice guy. So I'm pleased that to see him involved in football, and do hope that he does well. So, yeah, I think if he loses again at the weekend, it seems silly, really, doesn't it, to be talking about managers under pressure so early on in the season. And you do want to see them given time. So I'm not an expert on Oldham. I haven't seen enough of them to really sort of say, but I would say that you've got to give someone a lot more time than 2 games or 1 game into a season. Really, you've at least got to get to about 10 games and then go from there, because they've let him spend all the money and assembled his squad, so they have to give him a little bit of time to put that right. But people who watch Oldham week in, week out will know a lot more than me. So it'll be interesting to sort of get their comments and see what they think. But yeah, we're all quite fickle as football fans, aren't we? And we can change our opinions one way or another. But there were quite a lot of comments after Southend's victory against Oldham about David Unsworth. So whether or not he's that popular there, I don't know. So longer term, it's one to keep an eye on. And yeah, I would be interested to hear the views of those that are a lot closer to that situation than me.
Yeah, we'll actually have a look then now. I know we've got a few Oldham fans who are joining us. So Oldham fans, please get your thoughts in about Unsworth. I'm going to scroll up and see if people have been commenting at all on Unsworth so far. I don't believe we have, actually. I think it's been quite positive, to be fair, from the Oldham fans. What's Keza said here? It's going to take us 4 weeks minimum until Lundstrom, Green and Ward are back. Unless, yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
As well. And that's your core of your midfield that's out at the moment. And then we've said, what have people been saying? We'll come back to it then. No surprise, the lineup was disastrous, and everyone was what we was going to lose when it came out. Joe Aaron, who is a Wrexham supporter, Halifax and Wealdstone had a great round 1, and Kidderminster and Ebbsfleet showed up to play. The National League will be full of quality play this season. That's Aaron, our friend from America, who tunes
in. America, Brazil, they're tuning in from far and wide.
It's global. For Aaron, if you want
to go on tour, you could do this on tour. You should go around the world.
I should start doing that, to be honest. Yeah. But we've got Hayden's coming saying, you going to Bournemouth Saturday, Luke? Usually I would, but unfortunately I couldn't get out of going to see my family this weekend, so unfortunately not. But I will be at Oldham, and probably won't be missing a away game then until I think Woking, which is on a Tuesday night. And then we've got he has actually come in. Unsworth plays boring, defensive, depressing football with little attacking intent from the start. Sums it up. Yeah, for any Oldham fans, I know most people actually watch the streams afterwards once they've been published. So if any Oldham fans are watching this afterwards, please give your thoughts in the comments about Unsworth, and we'll see what you've been saying there. How can you say that when Oldham have 6 strikers? We'll move on then to the next game. Where do you want to go next?
Where should we go? Hartlepool, Gateshead?
That's another derby then, Hartlepool.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think my geography's right. I think that's less than an hour apart. I've been to both of those places, and yeah, they kind of played each other too many times, can they?
Yeah. What's your take on that then?
Hartlepool's an interesting one, isn't it? Obviously, we touched on with Rochdale about sides coming down into the league. I've been keeping an eye on them because they signed Chris Ray, who was someone that I always got on quite well with in Southend. So I was keeping an eye on their pre-season. I think they played Middlesbrough and did quite well. And I know they lost on the opening day of the season, didn't they? Gateshead, I think there are a lot of people's dark horses to do well this year. They finished the season really well last year, really seemed to turn it around after a bit of a slow start. I remember them beating Southend and at that point being sort of quite down towards the bottom. But towards the end of the season, they seem to be beating quite a lot of teams, and I think they've got a good manager there. So, yeah, this will be another sort of interesting game. I'm sure there'll be a good atmosphere inside it with the two clubs being so close together geographically at least. And yeah, it's a tough one to predict this, isn't it? What do you think?
I'm back in Hartlepool. I think at home they've got a big crowd behind them, haven't they? And yes, Gateshead got a point on the opening day, but going away to somewhere like Hartlepool, it's a tough place to go, and other fans get proper behind them there. So I'm going to back Hartlepool a 2-1. I was tempted to put a draw, but I've already.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a draw.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Hartlepool win. What's your prediction then?
I'll go 1-1 with Chris Ray getting the goal. There you go.
There we go.
The only man in football that I know that doesn't, he plays because he plays football without doing his laces up. There you go. That's his superstition.
Nothing wrong with that. I had to, because my laces did my nutting in football when I used to play, I had to get laceless boots at the end.
Oh, did you? I thought you were going to say you had some Velcro ones that you.
No, I had to. No, I'm not that bad. But yeah, they were doing me nutting, so I had to go laceless. To be honest.
Do you not know how to do your laces up? Was that the problem, really?
No. It was just doing me nutting, and I just couldn't.
Yeah, I'm the same. Mine, to be fair.
Right, we've put a poll out then. So answer that, which is the biggest derby? I've put 4 of the main ones, in my opinion, there, and the ones that people have mentioned. We'll move on then to the next game. Where do you want to go next?
Have we done Dorking? That one's still.
No, we haven't done Dorking. This will be a good one to preview.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. That stood out to me there.
2 part-time sides. Dorking, I think, shocked us again at Chesterfield, although they lost. I expect them to get battered by Chesterfield.
Yeah, well, it's probably on paper at least. I shouldn't say paper because we said earlier football's played on grass, but that was looking at like the toughest possible test, really, wasn't it, to start the season? So to put up the kind of challenge that they did, I know ultimately they'll be disappointed because they've come away with nothing, but they can take positives certainly from running a side as strong as Chesterfield so close. So yeah, Southend, we're there on Tuesday with Southend, so keeping an eye on this one with that one in mind as well. And Maidenhead had got a draw, didn't they, on the opening day? Both sides.
They were winning 2-0 as well.
Yeah, so both sides will be looking for their first win, and Dorking are good going forward, aren't they? So, this will be an interesting one. I don't know. I keep on changing my mind with this one. So, I think I'm going to go. There's always goals, aren't there, in Dorking games? Yeah. So, it'll probably be 0-0 now, I've said that. But I'm going to go 3-1.
Oh, you're kidding me. I'll have to change, man.
Is that what you've done?
Yeah, I'll go.
Wow.
So, I'm going to go.
Sorry about that.
They concede a lot of goals. I'm going to go 3-2 Dorking. I think they'll win at home. I think they need to. You don't really want to be going into game week 3 without a win, especially a side like Dorking. It's going to go off the set, but especially a side like Dorking, who, I think are one of those sides that a lot of people are predicting them to be down there, and to be not cutting adrift as such, but to have lost your opening 2 games, then playing the Southend side who won't be any pushovers, that it's not the best of starts for them. So I think Mark White will be hoping that they can get a result, because Maidenhead at home, no disrespect to Maidenhead, but you have to see that as a game that you must win if you want to survive in this division. Maybe Maidenhead on the other side would say Dorking away, you need to be getting something there. But I think especially Dorking being at home, you've got to expect them to win that game. But it's one of those, a bit of a contrast in styles. Maidenhead, the side who are very good defensively, don't play the prettiest football, but it's effective the way they do play. Where Dorking are this, quite attractive football side that honestly don't give a toss, do they, when they go into every game if they're wide open. And that's what I respect about them, is that, most managers, if you're, let's say, 2 or 3-0 down against a Chesterfield or an Oldham, most managers say, right, let's not embarrass ourselves here and let's see this game out. Mark White is like, nah, I'm not bothered about that. We're going to
he sticks to it, doesn't he?
He's got the attitude. He's got the attitude of we're going to win 4-3. And that's what I mean, where, you're going to get games where you're going to get absolutely battered, but you're also going to have games where you're going to look like a quality football side, like they did at Chesterfield, although they conceded 4. But yeah, I expect them to beat Maidenhead at home, to be honest. We'll move on to the next game then. One that I want to preview is AFC Fylde versus Chesterfield. Of course, Fylde have just added to the squad. Chesterfield won on the opening day, but I still feel that they've got a few slight issues because they left it late, and to concede 3 goals at home to any side in this division from a Chesterfield perspective, I wouldn't say it's a major concern, but I still feel if you're going to look at any negatives, you have to think, why have we conceded 3 goals in that match? What's your thoughts on this game?
It'll be a big one, won't it? For Fylde, obviously their first one at home since coming back into this league, or since coming into this league, and it'll be a real kind of barometer of where they're at. We touched on before how Chesterfield are tipped by many, including us, to be promotion sort of favourites, aren't they, this season? So I think Fylde will be looking at it as like a really good one to go into. They'll be up for it. They've got nothing to lose. Again, the pressure will be off them a little bit, and it will be a big day in their history. So you look at it and you think Chesterfield would have the attacking options to hurt them, but you are right, they will look at it and be a little bit concerned about the goals that they did concede. But I think Chesterfield have that real spirit. I remember going there with Southend last year, and they were reduced to 10 men quite early on and came back from 2-1 down to beat Southend 3-2. So they always seem to have that in them. They always seem to find a way, and I think they will again. I don't expect this to be an easy win for them, but I think they'll win this 1-0.
I've gone for a 2-2 draw in this game. I think.
Yeah, I'm be surprised.
Yeah, they're quite. I think a side that's going to interest me. I think going forward they look very good, and they've got more money than a lot of people may think. Last time they were in the league, they were 90 minutes away from being in the Football League Fylde, and then ever since then it's just gone downwards, to be honest. But they've found their way back in the National League now. And I think being at home after getting a point away at Maidenhead, coming back from 2-0 down, although they lost, although they drew, Horton looks a player, one of the best in this division. On that opening day, he's going to be something special. And then I think it's KU they've added up top as well. I think they're the sort of side that against the Chesterfield defence, I think they'll hurt Chesterfield, because I think what I think when I play Chesterfield this season is, yes, they've got some brilliant players going forward, but I think if there's any area that we can exploit them, I think that's defensively, because they've got two centre-halves there that I think are good standard National League centre-halves. But I'd never go overboard. I'd never compare with the likes of Sawamya, who's just left, or Lapata, who was at Chesterfield, or the likes of Tozer and Hayden, or Kyle Cameron. So I think Fylde will be able to exploit them there, but Chesterfield, on the other hand, are very good going forward. So
yeah, they just always seem to find a way. But yeah, I don't think it's a given at all by any stretch of the imagination. I think it'll be a very difficult game for Chesterfield, and I think Fylde will go into this really sort of fired up to show that they belong at this level. So yeah, that's another one that I'll be eagerly keeping an eye on. But I've just gone for Chesterfield just because I think they're so strong, and they're my tip for promotion ultimately. But having said that, I'm not 100% convinced that they will do it. It's just my season-long prediction. I've just sort of gone with that on probabilities. But yeah, I think this could be any outcome really. So it'd be interesting to see.
We'll move on to the next game then. Do you want to go to Ebbsfleet versus Solihull Moors then? Before I ask you for your prediction, what you're thinking of Solihull this season? Because people have different opinions on them. Some bad, some quite positive.
I think they're kind of in an unknown quantity a little bit, really. I think up until last year, they'd always been very strong, hadn't they? And they'd always been a side that had been up there and really sort of pushing for promotion. And we've sort of seen that in the games that Southend have played against them. They had the most bizarre game of football I've ever seen, but for matters off the field there last year, the chairman going into the away end, which I'll never forget, and very, very bizarre. So yeah, they are one of those teams that I tend to keep an eye on. Last year they had Ben Coco ex-Southend as well, and I really, out of any team in the whole league, I'm going to say I think they're the hardest for me to predict this year, because I really do not know what to expect from them. I would perhaps, if I had to guess, have them around lower to mid-table, like 14th, 15th, something like that. But I'm really not sure. They could be lower or they could be higher, and I think they're the hardest team for me to predict this year. You're no better than me. What do you think?
Well, they've had a massive turnover.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
A few big players have left them, but they've still got some quality players there, and they have added to the squad, like you've mentioned, with a lot of players who were a bit unknown or quite highly, respected players in this division. But yeah, I'm just not too confident about them this season under Wing. I look at the managers, and I think the majority of the league have got well-respected backed managers, and nothing against the Wing, but he's come from the lower leagues and he's very unproven. And I think at this level, as a young manager as well, compared to some of the managers up against, I think Solihull may struggle. My prediction though for this game, I'm backing Ebbsfleet. Like I've said, I'm very confident about them this season.
Yeah, I've gone for
a very,
Ebbsfleet.
very good side, very good footballing side, press high up the field. First game back in the National League. I can't see any other results. I've gone for a 3-1 Ebbsfleet win.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the same as me. I've gone 2-1 Ebbsfleet.
2-1 Ebbsfleet. Right then. So we'll have a look at the live chat. So I know David's coming and said Horton very impressive at Maine, and yeah, looked it on the highlights. He's going to be one of the star players, I think, this season in the National League. We'll move on to the next game then. I think we've got the final, these ones at the bottom here, I think. So we've got Oxford, Rochdale, Woking Alter, York Kidderminster, and Bromley Barnet. Where do you want to go next?
Let's go to York. They've been exceptionally nice to Southend. They're every Southend fan's second team now. So we'll go there. Yeah, I've got to go for a York win, haven't I? Ryan will be watching as well. So, yeah, I think, and I had them third in my predictions. They might be a bit too high. I'm not too sure, but I expect them to do well this season. So, yeah, I'm tipping them to get the victory this weekend, and I'm going to go 2-0 York.
I went 1-0 York. They had a tough start at Wealdstone, and I still feel that you've got a load of new players that are coming in. There's a massive buzz about you, but you're still having, a load of new players, a lot of players that didn't actually play, who you would have expected to the likes of Corden, I don't think played. And I do think you can't read too much into that, because of course they had the red card as well, and they conceded a penalty away. But at home to Kidderminster, I'm not too confident about Kidderminster this season. I think they may struggle. Going forward, I'm a bit concerned about them. I just can't see where the goals are coming from Kidderminster's perspective. Of course, that showed on the opening day when they actually drew to Woking, which I think is a good point.
It's not a bad point. I think Woking will be in the playoffs this year, so that is a decent point.
But to still not score, I just think that I just can't see them scoring many goals, and I think that's going to be the problem. York, I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. I think it's going to take time before the shackles come off at York and we really see what they're capable of. But I think they'll win this game 1-0. I think they'll pull through. I think it'll be scrappy. It won't be a pretty game, but I expect York to win this 1-0 at home. Where do you like to go next?
Where? Rochdale? Oxford, Rochdale? Should we do that one?
Culture shock, I think. Two sides that have never played each other ever
I've not been to Oxford City. Have you been there?
No, I've never been there, to be honest. Both sides lost on the opening day. Rochdale lost at home to Ebbsfleet, but Oxford, they're a side for me that I think they're going to be like a Havant and Waterlooville or a Maidstone of last season. I think conceding 5 away from home on the opening day to an Aldershot side who, yes, I'm quite confident for and optimistic about this season, but still a side that barely survived last season, to concede 5 goals away from home screams a lot of concerns. And I think at home to Rochdale, a side who've lost, you'd expect if you're wanting to survive that you need to get something out of this game. I think it's going to be a difficult place to go, Oxford. I think they'll be better at home than they are away. Of course, I believe they've got a plastic pitch as well, Oxford, and a very good striker in Parker who did actually score on the opening day, not just once but twice. I think this will be a 2-2 draw, me. Rochdale have got a lot of firepower going forward. Sinclair, Devante Rodney. And I don't think they're a bad side, Rochdale. I think it's just going to take time for them to come to terms with the National League and kind of like just get used to it, to be honest, and adjust to the National League. So I think it'll be a 2-2 draw, me. And I think that I've said that for the third time. But what's your take on this game?
I had this as a draw as well, but I don't know whether tactically now to change it just to try and be able to get more points than you. But yeah, 1-1 is what I'm going to be going for. I think both sides will be wanting to not lose after their sort of start to the season. And I think that may be reflected in the game that we see. So I think this will be a draw as well. I think both of them will be wanting to stop the rot is too strong a saying, but I think they'll both be determined to get something out of the game. So I think it'll be 1-1.
Well, we hardly ever get Aldershot fans that ever tune in, but since it's been a lot more optimistic, we all seem to be coming in tonight. We've got
they're the flavour of the month. They got a nice kit as well.
Yeah. I know they won, didn't they? That competition.
Yeah, they won the poll. That was before the Southend one came out, but yeah, it is still a nice kit.
Do you think Southend have beat that?
Oh, I'm probably a bit biased now that the Southend home kit's got yellow in, but yeah, I think it'll be Southend or Aldershot.
Yeah, Aldershot, Fanny. If we beat Oldham followed by beating Ebbsfleet, will people start seeing us as contenders rather than relegation candidates? I think you've joined the stream late because we've spoke about them, and I'm very optimistic about yourselves. I
Good
predicted,
manager as well. He's from this neck of the woods. He had a spell at
exactly.
Southend as assistant, and I'm pretty sure he still lives down this way. And he knows his onions, so to speak. So he'll be able to get a team together. And yeah, he takes no prisoners with his managerial style. I'm sure he did. And I remember him being quite volatile on the line. He got sent off with Kings Lynn when he came to Southend. So yeah, he doesn't shirk any responsibilities, and he's certainly up for the fight. And I think he'll do well there.
Yeah, I do as well. Like I've said, I think Aldershot, they could be that side that surprise a few, even myself, when I first initially did my predictions. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because it is the opening game week and we don't really know what to expect from.
And it is the National League, so,
It's the National League, yeah. So it's hard to say, but we'll move on to the next game then. Woking v Altrincham. Altrincham, I've got high hopes for this season, did very impressive business, but they're going to Woking and that's a tough place to go. What's your prediction?
I really like what I saw from Woking last year. There was a really, really good game when they came to Roots Hall. There was another game towards the end of the season when both teams look a little bit tired, but the match at Roots Hall was brilliant, and Woking were really, really impressive. Very physical, but were also able to play football when required. So I think that they'll carry that into this season. I expect them to get into the playoffs, and I'm going to say Altrincham are never an easy side to play. They're always a lot tougher than people give them credit for. And I like what they do and how they play, but I'm going for a Woking win. So I'm going to say 2-1 Woking.
I'm glad you said 2-1 because I've said 1-0 Woking at home there. Like I've said, I expect big things from Alty. I think it's going to take time, but away from home, going to Woking, it's a tough place to go. That and I do expect Woking to win that game, being at home with some of the players that they've got there as well, and a very good manager in Darryl Sall as well.
Yeah.
Hayden said. When we get to about November, I think we'll see the table, how the table shapes up.
Yeah, fair comment.
I know. I spoke to Adam Summerton and he was saying, you can see patterns, I think, about 10 games in. At the moment, it's too hard to judge. But everyone seems to, for the Oxford, I've only just had a look at the live chat, to be honest, but everyone's been backing Rochdale to win that game 4-1. I think 3 people have, apart from Chris, who said Oxford are going to win 1-0. And then people have said 2-0 to Woking, 2-1 to Woking. Keep your predictions coming in. I do apologise, I haven't been able to read them, but we're trying to get through these. I think we are on the final game now. Bromley v Barnet, the televised match. 2 of last season's playoff candidates. I went for Barnet to win this. I'll be honest, although we defeated Bromley, I did think they were not a bad side, but I don't think they were as good as last season from what I saw against them. Defensively, they didn't seem as strong. And I think a side like Barnet managed to defeat Hartlepool on the opening day. I do think will be strong themselves.
Yeah, they nearly threw it away, didn't they? Weren't they 3-0
yeah,
up?
They nearly did. They were 3-0 up. But I think they'll win this 3-1. I think they've got a lot of firepower going forward. What's your thoughts on this game?
I think this will be a good game. Good one to choose for telly. I think it's going to be 2-2. Ultimately, it seems to be our favourite scoreline in the predictions.
Yeah,
this
it does
week,
tonight.
But Bromley, another one that are quite hard to play against. So it'd be interesting to see if that's the case again this year. I quite enjoyed, although I quite like the way Barnet play. I quite like what they do and how they go about it. So, yeah, they're another side that I think will be pushing for the playoffs. I think both these sides will be pushing for the playoffs this year. And I think this will be 2-2.
2-2, right then. So I think that concludes all of the predictions. We'll have a look at what people have finally been saying before we do bring things to a close. Someone said 1-1, 1-1. 4-3 to Barnet. This division wouldn't surprise me. The two sides have a lot of goals in them, so I get why you've come from that. 2-1 to Bromley. Bromley have just signed a winger. I haven't seen that, so I'll have to see that once the live stream ends.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. So
we'll have to. Yeah, I'll just get that off there, and then Sorted. Right, there we go. So we'll have a look at. I want to have a look at that poll because I have a feeling it's going to be Aldershot working. So this is.
Oh yeah, how's it going?
So in last place, Halifax v Rochdale, 3% is the biggest.
It's actually you that's voted for that one.
I ain't been able to vote, but I think it'll be the Halifax fans. And then we've had Dagenham v Southend, 16%. And then Woking v Aldershot is actually second, which I think it's more because we've got more Oldham and Rochdale fans here than. No, but then again, we've got a lot of Aldershot and Woking fans in. So
yeah, I do remember when Southend played Oldham towards the end of last season, and they were singing about Rochdale because I think Rochdale were just in the process of getting relegated.
Mm-hmm. But it is tight, and it might. If someone voted now, I think it'd take 1 or 2 votes, and it might change. But Oldham v Rochdale has got 42%, and Woking v Aldershot's got 39%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very, very tight. That I'm going to see what people are saying in the live chat.
Is that on Twitter? You've put that? I'll do a retweet.
No, I put that on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So we've had. I voted. Let's see what people were saying. We've had Mr. Luke who's come in and said all the best to the team going at each other on game week 2. Yeah, cheers for tuning in once again, Luke. Someone else has come in and said 2-1 to Bromley. Keza said I voted Woking Aldershot, and that's an Oldham fan who said that. But then Tom, who's a Solihull fan, said Oldham v Rochdale is more local. Is it? And I don't know. I just know that Oldham and Rochdale, that's very close to each other, but I don't know how close Woking and Aldershot are. We'll have a look. And then we've had, I think this is another Gateshead fan. I'm going to Hartlepool on Saturday. Yeah, that'll be a good away day for you guys too. I think we're just seeing what someone else has finally come in. Do we think we get the same amount of goals as last game week? I heard there was about 41 it was, which is nuts. Do you agree with that, Chris? Or as in, do you think there'll be more or?
I think there'll be less. I think maybe sides now that they've had the first game, I think they've got something to react to. So I think if they've lost, I don't think they go for it as much. Whereas I think on the opening day, I think it's kind of like a fresh approach, and they've got nothing in the back of their minds. It's kind of just like a little bit more freedom. I think teams will also have had time to work on weaknesses that would have been shown up, perhaps defensively, in that first game as well. It's been a clear week. So I think that my personal opinion is that there'll be less goals unless they play another 20 minutes injury time in every game, in which case there'll be more goals.
Yeah, I know we've had Ashley's coming in and said, did you see how many red cards there were? Yeah, I think there was, it was the Gateshead fan who came and said, I think one, was it 5 or 6? I know Oldham Southend had one.
Yeah, there were a few.
Dorking Chesterfield had one. There were another Gateshead Bournemouth, I think, had one, and Wheelstone v York had one. I feel like there were one more as well. But yeah, there were a lot of red cards, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think there was 6. I think I remember seeing somewhere. Did you say York as well? Didn't they have a?
Yeah, they definitely
Solihull, did they?
Solihull might. Solihull did. Solihull definitely did against Eastleigh because it was Solihull man who got sent off. Hayden said, 0-0 Halifax Bournemouth is such a lock. It's going to happen. It's just 2 sides that are very low scoring sides. 6 in non-league Joe, and he's a statistician on this podcast.
Oh, well done, Joe. See, I knew I heard that. I don't know where I'd heard it, but it just stuck in my mind.
Yeah, he said 6 in non-league and 12 in non-league, National League North and National League South. Filed had a red card apparently as well. Someone said the new booking rule seems, I won't say that, two card happy refs now. I know we spoke to Mark White about that, and he's not a fan of the refs in this division.
Did you know that there was a bit of people didn't know that? I didn't know this. Did you know that when a player goes off injured now, they're not allowed back on until 30 seconds?
I thought, I didn't know it was 30 seconds, but I know when
because it happened with the red card in the Southend game. Nathan Ralph got injured, and then he was waiting to come back on for quite a long time. So a lot of the Southend fans were getting quite irate about the situation. So there's a new rule brought in this year that if someone goes down injured, they're not allowed. Then they get treated and they go off. They have to wait 30 seconds until they they come back on.
So before, was it like, because I know what happens is when players get injured, they go off the pitch and then they like get told when to cut, and the ref goes, come back on. Is it now like a set time or?
Yeah, 30 seconds. The ref still has to indicate when they're allowed back on to play. But yeah, I didn't know that until the weekend when someone very high up at Southend told me that's a new rule brought into this season. So I bet the refs love that because they're going to get everyone shouting at them.
They will.
Yeah, back on.
Did anyone see that? I don't know if you've seen, but on Bunch of Amateurs, it's funny as all some of the clips on there. But there was some of the linesman was on the side, and one of the Dorking players had more red on his sock than what I think he should have had. Where the opposition had red sock, had loads of red socks as well, because it was something that shouldn't have been part of the kit. And the linesman went over and questioned him on it. And then Mark White saying, well, the opposition have got that. And saying, you must be bored. Well, there must be referees in this division, to be honest. Because they are clueless, I'll be honest.
I don't envy anyone that's a ref in this league.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to get a non-league ref on who refs in the National League before the end of the season.
There's an interesting referee in our league. I don't know whether he got promotion, actually, but there was a referee certainly last year who was also a tennis umpire at Wimbledon. So that'd be quite a good one. But a lot of the time, they're not allowed to do it, are they? They have to get sort of permission. So maybe you could get one that's retired or something like that.
Yeah, I will do. But it'd be interesting to see from their perspective what they'd say on it, because we never hear anything from them. They've never got an opportunity on interviews or anything to give their perspective across. Finally, before we do finish it, someone's asked thoughts on the new added time. I know a lot of people have come in late. We rewind the podcast and watch it from the start because we spoke about that quite detailed earlier on. And the rest is just on referees. So before we do close, I'll ask people to please like the podcast and subscribe too. Chris, once again, thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you for asking me on. It was a pleasure to the National League guru, as I call you. So it was brilliant to talk to you again. Thank you. We're on the one tomorrow as well, aren't we? We're becoming
one tomorrow. Keep an eye out for that one. National League space tomorrow, so that should be good. But no, Chris, you've saved me here because Paul dropped out last minute due to personal circumstances. So you've saved me here. So thank you very much for joining me. No worries.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, brilliant. So, I'm sure we'll have you on again during the season, even if that is to talk about Southend or to predict all the games again. But, Chris, thank you very much for joining me and enjoy your tennis.
Hopefully. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you. There we go.